What's up, everybody? It's been a while. I'm Brandon, also known as the Fat Viking, and welcome back. It's been, what, over a year, I think, since I've made a video. Just been busy with life and taking care of business and you know, just literally living through life, and just haven't had the time to actually make another video. Also, the lack of ideas and stuff. Instead of me driving home from work, now I'm driving to work. I switched my shift around, and now I'm working second shift. This video, I guess you could call it partially a life update video, even though it's really nothing really to talk about other than just it's been absent. Haven't had the time or any ideas to make videos until just now. I had the idea, why don't I make a video for people getting into metal who or had just started listening to metal and want to know the history on how metal started and how it got to where it is today. And for the people that have watched my videos, the 96 of you, you know from the past I've made the numbers of videos about the music genre and about certain bands and stuff, and figured I could make one that encompasses everything. If you're new to my channel, that's really what I sit in my car and I talk to the camera and smoke cigars. I also like to do cigar reviews sometimes. I haven't really had new cigars lately, so I don't have anything to review. I'm smoking a El Baton. Please mind the wind noise. I gotta have the smoke go somewhere. Alright, so history of metal. In its infancy, even pre-metal, you had bands like Led Zeppelin, AC/DC, Deep Purple, I would even consider Boston, the early Boston, pre-metal. I was just listening to the first album today, and just listening to the guitar tones on that album, way ahead of its time. Really, really distorted and overdriven. But people will argue about this, but it's a pretty, agreed upon statement that Black Sabbath was the first metal band. Some people say that Deep Purple was the first. I really don't know that much about Deep Purple. I'm not sure exactly when they started, but I know that I think Sabbath formed in 1968, and then their first album came out in 1970, which is the self-titled album Black Sabbath, with the creepy house and the witch. They were the first to have that detuned, extremely distorted guitar tone, and due to their guitarist Tony Iommi's accident, I think he used to work at I think it was like a mill or something, and they put him on this machine that was cutting metal, and he had never worked on it before. It was his last day, because he was quitting to pursue music, and he's putting this metal into the machine, and this big metal bar comes down and cuts the metal. Well, his fingers were too far in, and it grabbed the tips of his glove that he was wearing and pulling the tips of his fingers off. He basically cut the tips of his fretting hand, fingers on his fretting hand off. And the doctors were saying that he could never play guitar again because the tips of the fingers were too sensitive, and And in all fairness, probably, but he didn't want to give up. So what he did was he found, like, I don't know what kind of wax it was, but it was basically made wax fingertips so he could fret. And he would have to use really, really, really light strings to where, you know, he didn't have to push them down as hard. And, you know, detuning your guitar, you know, tuning it down from standard, it makes the string slightly softer. And, you know, having done that, it made that low, dirty, distorted sound that really all metal bands use today. Excuse me, I'm eating lunch on the way to work. Call me fat, I don't care. But they put out first album. I think it took them, like, I think they recorded it in a night, all one take or whatever. And that was like early in the year of 1970. And then later that year, 1970, they came out with the second album, Paranoid. Virtually sounds the same. The guitar tones on Paranoid and the first Black Sabbath album are relatively the same. Same thing with Ozzy's voice. I actually prefer Ozzy's voice on those albums to anything else he's ever done. It's not as nasally. Don't get me wrong, Ozzy's one of my favorite artists of all time, but those two albums I think are my favorite of his work. So Black Sabbath took the rock and roll world by storm. They weren't considered metal until, I would say, into the 80s. They were considered acid rock at that time. But all the music they were writing was real heavy shit. Like, Tony Iommi's the master of riff. I think the first song they ever wrote was called Wicked World, and then they wrote the song Black Sabbath. It was slow and doomy and about Satan. And, you know, they created a whole genre, and they were responsible for the doom metal genre, because all these doom metal bands sound like fucking Sabbath. So, you know, you had Sabbath come out, and all their peers, like Led Zeppelin, I would consider pre-metal. You know, they're not as heavy, and they're more, you know, hippy-dippy kind of. And then into the 70s, you had bands like Boston and Thin Lizzy, and even Kansas. The guitar tone on You Carry On Wayward Son is very distorted and heavy. And then you had a band, I think, 75 was when the first Judas Priest album came out, and it was kind of the same style. It was like blues rock, but real heavy. And then as Judas Priest matured and changed the sound, I think they were the first ones to call themselves heavy metal. I would consider British Steel was their album that put them into the metal realm. And then you had what I think is their best album, aside from Painkiller, is Defenders of the Faith. You know, you had songs on there like Free Will Burning, and The Sentinel was probably the best song on the album. You know, Judas Priest would dressed up like bikers with leather and fucking studs, and they were the first band to call themselves metal. Black Sabbath created it. So that was, you know, those bands came from, you know, the mid to late 70s, and then you had really the next wave, no pun intended, was the new wave of British heavy metal, which was started in the very late 70s and early 80s with bands like some would consider Judas Priest the first band to start that new wave of British heavy metal. And I agree with that. The new wave of British heavy metal, all the riffs are like very melodic. The guitars are more distorted, more overdriven. You could say that Eddie, you can say that Eddie Van Halen was the one that created that quintessential overdriven sound of the 80s. Everyone wanted to sound like him. The first Van Halen album came out in 78, 79, I think. 78. And yeah, so if it wasn't for Eddie Van Halen, someone probably else would have done it, but I think he did it the best, making that sound. You listen to anything else from the 80s or from the late 70s, nothing sounds like Eddie's guitar tone. And then the new wave of British heavy metal came out, and everyone tried to get that tone, and started building guitars with they've humbucker pickups, and they could overdrive them more. You could do that more with a dual pickup in your guitar instead of a single coil, like a Strat. Obviously, they had humbucker. Here we have no edited videos. You hear every cough and fuck up that I do. So in the 50s, when the Les Paul came out and the SG, they all had humbucker pickups and stuff, but no one really pushed them to where they were being pushed today, especially making active pickups like the EMG pickups that run on batteries so we can overdrive them more. But having said that, you had the new wave of British heavy metal that came out in the late 70s, early 80s. Iron Maiden, Diamond Head, Saxon, all those bands. And then you had, around the same time, the first wave of black metal. Venom, Bathory. I would even consider Venom the first thrash metal band, honestly. Because then after the new wave of British heavy metal, you had in San Francisco, it was called thrash metal. It was punk mixed with the new wave of British heavy metal. So you had the speed and aggression of punk, but the riff writing and musicianship and melodicness of the new wave. And then the thrash metal bands were Metallica, Megadeth, Slayer, Anthrax, Overkill, Testament, Exodus, which I think Exodus is the best thrash metal band of the 80s. Metallica is my favorite band of all time, but Exodus is the best. Out of all the thrash metal bands, Exodus are the best. And then simultaneously in Los Angeles, you had the hair metal scene with bands like Motley Crue and Twisted Sister and Rat and all them, all these dudes dressing up like chicks, big hair and makeup and hairspray. When it wasn't up in San Francisco, it was completely different. And they didn't like each other. Metallica hated fucking all those fucking hair metal bands because of all the fucking stage prop shit. Metallica would go out on stage with nothing but just wearing their fucking street clothes and stuff. It was more for the music than the show. And then across the United States and in New York, you had a thrash metal scene out there, but it was more of the hardcore punk scene with bands like Agnostic Front, the Cro-Mags, Sick of It All, Madball, all those bands. I think Madball was a little bit later. similar to thrash, but it was more simple. It was literally hardcore punk. Think of like the Misfits on steroids. And that was the dominating force all throughout the 80s. Thrash, hair metal, and hardcore punk. You had Judas Priest putting out albums. You had early power metal coming out like Halloween and bands like that. But it was mainly thrash and that stuff. So towards the end of the 80s, mainstream metal was dying out due to the grunge movement. Grunge is just like Alice in Chains, Nirvana, Soundgarden, and all that. But in the underground, in like Buffalo, New York, and in like Florida, you had the birth of death metal, like with like bands like Cannibal Corpse, Suffocation, Deicide, Obituary. It was thrash metal on steroids. They took the speed and aggression of Slayer and fucking amped it up to 11 even more with chunkier riffs, guttural growling vocals. It just, it was fucking extreme. It was like real fucking heavy. And I love death metal as well. And that, death metal reigned from the 90s, late 80s, or throughout the 90s and into the 2000s. Simultaneously, you had in Norway and Sweden and up there, you had the dawn of Norwegian black metal. Now, Norwegian black metal and the first wave of black metal are completely different. Norwegian black metal really took everything to the next level. They were the opposite of everything that death metal was. Death metal production was very, very good. It sounded awesome. The guys in black metal bands of Norway didn't like all that shit because all those bands sound the same to them. So you had bands like Mayhem, Emperor, Enslaved, Dark Throne, Bertum. They embraced Satan and all the occult, and whether you believe that they actually believed in that shit or not, which I don't think they did. It was more for like shock value, like it has been, even with like Slayer and stuff. But being naive 20-year-olds, they took it to the extreme and were burning down churches, killing people. The famous story of Varg killing Euronymous from Mayhem. And you had Faust from Emperor killing that gay dude in the woods. A lot of crime was centered around Norwegian black metal, and got a lot of bad press, but bad press is still good press, and they got popular. I love black metal. There's something about it, how atmospheric it is, and the sound is so, how would you just, it sounds like the music is in a blender, but it sounds cool. It's like, when I listen to black metal, I picture like a frosty, snowy forest with mist in Norway with all these trees and stuff. It's that kind of vibes. So into the 2000s, with grunge slowly starting to fade away, and all the post-grunge bands like Creed and Stained, You had bands that were coming out like Slipknot and Limp Bizkit and Papa Roach. All of them were considered nu metal, spelled N-U, and nu metal. It was mainly mixing rap and metal together. You have bands like Slipknot that really didn't mix rap, but they would use like turntables and shit. It was more modern, I would say. And you had like Linkin Park, they're nu metal. It's heavy riffs mixed with rap choruses and shit like that, and some of it's cool. It's not really my thing. And then you also had power metal becoming popular, like Dragon Force and Power Wolf and all those bands. And then throughout the 2000s and the 2010s, you saw a lot of renaissance of older styles becoming, starting back up again, like the second wave of thrash metal. You had bands like Evil, Municipal Waste, Havoc. It's a bunch of kids that grew up listening to this stuff from the 80s and wanting to, make that same music. And nowadays, it's a whole melting pot of different genres. I would say the genre that, as of recent, that has become very, very popular is metalcore and deathcore. Like bands like Lorna Shore, fucking Slaughter to Prevail, Whitechapel, Suicide Silence. There were, and it's really hard to encompass all the different movements and genres and scenes. Like there's, like I said, the death metal scene in the 90s in America, but you also had death metal in Sweden, like the Swedish death metal scene, Gothenburg and Stockholm. You had bands like Monomarth. Drawing a blank. At the Gates, bands like that from Sweden, and they were more melodic death metal. It was literally what it is. It's melodic death metal. I think that's my favorite genre of death metal. And especially nowadays, it's just a lot of different stuff. Metal came back, and there's a lot of it, and there's a lot to chew on and look into and research. And if somebody who's new into it, who's just starting to get into metal, you're not gonna know all of it right away. It takes years of listening and discovering. I've been listening to this genre since I was a little kid. Listening to Metallica in my dad's truck and going through all of it, and then finding the bands that I like and just diving headfirst into it. It's a lifestyle. It's a brotherhood. It's a way of life. The camaraderie and the respect between metalheads and all the concerts and festivals and stuff you go to. It's fun and it's interesting seeing all the backlash and the controversy throughout the 80s with the Satanic Panic and shit like that. There's a lot of rich history in this encompassing phenomenon that is known as heavy metal. And if I didn't have metal, I don't know where I would be today. Just aggressive music in general. I love punk rock. I like grunge. I like some grunge bands. I really don't like power. I don't like nu metal that much, but it all has a place. It's all valid. You like what you like, and don't let anybody tell you different. If you like Limp Bizkit and that's the band that started it all for you and made you branch out, go for it. People may not like it. Hell, even Nickelback. If you start listening to Nickelback, you discovered them, you really like them, go for it. Listen to it. As long as the music speaks to you, that's all that matters. Even rap, hip hop, the music needs to speak to you. It needs to. It's hard to explain. It's like you need to be able to feel the music. Some people can't feel music. I can listen to a song and feel the emotion and it makes me start to cry. But other people, it doesn't happen. When I discover a new band, I have to listen to their entire discography. Because I feel like if I'm going to listen to this band and I like them, I need to know everything about them. I think a lot more people need to listen to metal. And I think there's a genre out there for everybody. I really do. Because there are so many genres and subgenres. There's something out there for something out there for everybody. You just gotta look for it. Do your homework. Research. Well, I think that encompasses a broad explanation of the history of metal. If you like the video, push the like button, because that's what you do when you like something. You push the like button, and it lets me know whether you want to see more of this content. Oh, look, a Cybertruck. So fucking stupid. Sorry. But yeah, if you enjoyed the video, let me know in the comments. Please subscribe. It's simple what I do here. It's run down. It's raw. It's the best that I can do with what I have. But you're getting the true me. This is who I am on a daily basis. You don't like me? Fuck you. You know, let me know what you want to see. Let me know what you want me to talk about. And I'll do it. Alright, thank you for watching. I've talked too much. I'm rambling now. And I will see you in the next video.